And with people very concerned that the end of Title 42 may mean rampant immigration in this country, I thought it might be a good idea and a good time to look at what's happening as it relates to border security and immigration. And I can't think of a better person to look at those issues with than Michael Cutler. He is a retired senior special agent for INS and a fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies. He's somebody that lives, eats, breathes this issue like no other. Michael, thanks for staying up late with us.
Yeah, my pleasure, Frank. It's always great to join you. We go back forever. By the way, I am no longer affiliated with the Center for Immigration Studies. That ended many years ago, but that's fine. I've testified before. I think we're up to 17 congressional hearings in the House and Senate. I provided testimony to the 9/11 Commission. And I have to make one quick observation about your discussion about prisons. I've been in many of them, working as an agent, dealing with informants, dealing with criminal aliens who were arrested and charged with all sorts of crimes, ranging from murder to narcotics. Half my 30 years with the INS, I was working with the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. I was the first INS agent assigned to the Unified Intelligence Division of DEA. And you're right about prisons. We call them correctional facilities, but there's not much correction going on. But what we should probably be doing is looking how people wind up in jail in the first place. Levels of illiteracy, levels of drug abuse, membership in gangs. And when the schools fail our children, and when families fail our children, frequently they make bad decisions. And it's remarkable to me, and I have to make the observation, that you have an administration that is attacking parents who are engaged in their children's education and declaring them to be terrorists. I was the president of the Parents Association of my daughter's public school. And what you really do want are parents involved in their children's education. So what we're doing is not helping to ameliorate the situation. And when you flood the country with narcotics, and you flood the country with gangs, and you displace American workers. I remember growing up in Brooklyn, and I'm on the wrong side of 70, but all of us, my friends, we all worked in restaurants. I'm a Jewish kid from Brooklyn. I worked in a kosher deli, and it taught us responsibility, the dignity that goes with work. And today, the hiring of illegal aliens, not hiring American children so that they could have that first notch on that resume that gets them to the next job the following summer. We're doing a lot of things wrong, and it's exacerbating the problems, the glamorization of violence. It's insane. You go to the movies, and people are, driving cars through windows and blowing people up, while the radical left screams about gun control. It's really schizophrenic. Wouldn't you agree with me?
I would indeed. Talking with Michael Cutler, retired senior special agent for the INS. Now, the issue of border security, you are not a Johnny-come-lately on this issue. You've devoted most of your professional career and a good portion of your life after you're leaving public service to this issue. This is not a new issue in terms of your interest in it. I want you to explain to folks who might think this is an issue that's exploited by politicians or interest groups, either on the right or the left, why the issue of border security and illegal immigration is such an important one, whether it's from a national security perspective, an economic one, a cultural one, a crime one, or even an infectious disease. Why is border security and immigration so important to deal with?
Sure. And by the way, I want to start out by making the observation that we are a nation of 50 border states, not 4 border states. I do many speaking events. I work with the Speakers Bureau in Washington that does seminars for the military and the intelligence services. And I love it when you say to someone, how many border states do we have? They rattle off Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, California. No, we have 50 border states. Any state that lies on the northern or southern border is a border state. Any state that has access to America's 95,000 miles of coastline is a border state. Any state that has an international airport is a border state. New York, in point of fact, hits the trifecta. New York State connects to Canada. We have seaports. We have international airports. And, you were talking about the term illegal immigrant. I use the term illegal alien. And it was Jimmy Carter who started this. And by the way, full disclosure, I'm a lifelong registered Democrat. The problem is the Democrats are no longer Democrats. The wheels have come off their wagon. This is not the Democrat Party that I signed up with back when I was a student at Brooklyn College when I first voted. They've really lost their minds. But both parties are exploiting immigration. But what I want everyone to understand is that the term alien is not a pejorative. It's not an insult. It's not the N-word. Legally, it's a legal term, and the Immigration Act defines an alien simply as any person not a citizen or national of the United States. So where's the insult? It doesn't say you're ugly, you smell bad, or you're stupid. It just says you're not an American. It's like, you're my friend, Frank, but since you're not related to me, you're not part of my family. That's not an insult. That's a statement of reality. But by changing the word alien to immigrant, if you dare suggest that we limit how many non-citizens, how many aliens can enter the United States, you get labeled anti-immigrant. And so suddenly you're viewed as a xenophobe and a hater. You can go to the so-called conservative television programs, and people that want amnesty, which is really anarchy, are lauded as being pro-immigrant, and people such as myself that believes in enforcing the laws that are on the books are anti-immigrant. It's not anti-immigrant. We admit more than 1 million lawful immigrants every year. We give them green cards. They're immediately placed on the path to citizenship. That's more than the rest of the world combined. We admit tens of millions of temporary visitors as tourists, as foreign students, as journalists, as temporary workers, tens of millions per year. I'm not suggesting shutting down the border, but this is the rhetoric being spewed by the globalists. You can find them on both sides of the aisle. Think about the border wall. And everyone said, oh, my God, it's a wall of hate. It's about keeping out Mexicans. Guess what, folks? The border wall is not designed to stop a single human being from entering the United States, period, full stop. You did not mishear me. I will repeat it. The border wall is not designed to stop anyone from entering the country because it doesn't block off the ports of entry. The border wall was intended to prevent people from sneaking in and evading the inspections process. It's like the velvet rope at the bank that guides the customers to the next teller. It's like the cattle run at the airport that guides the passengers to the next TSA agent. Or think of it as the gate at the football stadium. You don't just run across the field to get to your seat. You go through a gate, you buy a ticket, maybe they go through a metal detector, and then you are guided to your seat so you can enjoy the game without disrupting everything. How in the world is it a wall of hate when all we're trying to do is make certain that people go through the process? Now, the process is important. So let me give everyone out there a section of law that I really want you to check out after the program. Jot it down, write it on the wall, write it on the back of your hand. Title 8, United States Code, Section 1182. It's a list of categories of aliens who are to be kept out of the United States. Now, it has nothing to do with race, nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with ethnicity. If it did, I couldn't have enforced those laws for 30 seconds, let alone 30 years. Category number 1, aliens with dangerous communicable diseases. Think COVID. Realize also that Ellis Island was a quarantine station. At the time of its completion, it was the biggest hospital complex in America. 42 buildings, okay? Aliens who are severely mentally ill and violent to be excluded. Aliens who are criminals, terrorists, spies, human rights violators, drug traffickers, human traffickers, people who make a living by exploiting sex workers, aliens who have been previously deported or lied on their applications for various benefits, aliens who would become a public charge, or aliens who, if they worked, would displace American workers and hurt the wages of working Americans. Is there any category that I've listed, and I think I mentioned terrorists also. If I didn't, terrorists certainly on the list, and also Nazi war criminals. Tell me something. Do you want any of those individuals I just described to enter the United States?
I personally don't, but I'm wondering, Michael, I think maybe some folks don't realize why this is such an important issue to you and to the country. Why should immigration and controlling who comes through the border, and if people just tuning in, we're talking with retired INS agent Michael Cutler, why should that be of paramount concern to most Americans? What's the big deal?
Well, let's start out with the 9/11 Commission staff report on terrorist travel. You know, I provided testimony to the 9/11 Commission I've investigated and arrested terrorists. People don't realize that. What immigration agents do, what the Border Patrol does, is actually a follow-on to the mission of the United States military. A couple of months ago, I was in Washington. I had the privilege of addressing a bunch of Air Force generals and colonels. And 2 years ago, one of the people in my audience had just come back from the space station. He was one of our astronauts and a member of the United States Air Force. And I made the point, and I've never gotten any pushback from anybody in the military. The common mission of our armed forces is to keep the enemies of the United States as far from our shores as possible. Up close and in person, guess who gets the assignment? It's the Border Patrol and the men and women of ICE. Okay? Let me just read one short paragraph. This is the preface from the 9/11 Commission staff report on terrorist travel. This was a second report published by the U.S. Government Printing Office. It's an official report, and it was authored by the federal agents and attorneys who were assigned to the 9/11 Commission. It's a quick sentence, and it really underscores the issue. It is perhaps obvious to state that terrorists cannot plan and carry out attacks in the United States if they are unable to enter the country. Yet prior to September 11, while there were efforts to enhance border security, no agency of the U.S. government thought of border security as a tool in the counterterrorism arsenal. I mean, you really got to wonder who was running the agency, not to see that immediately. But let's move on. Indeed, even after 19 hijackers demonstrated the relative ease of obtaining a U.S. visa and gaining admission into the United States, border security still is not considered a cornerstone of national security policy. We believe, for reasons that we discuss in the following pages, that it must be made one. Now, if you remember, when I was on the round table, Cats at Night, right. I believe the name of the program, Congressman Peter King was there. Peter King was the chairman of a hearing that we talked about. And so let me just quickly read this, because I want everyone to understand what we're really dealing with. On April 17, 2018, the House Counterterrorism and Intelligence Subcommittee, which at the time was chaired by Peter King, conducted a hearing on the topic, the state sponsors of terrorism, and examination of Iran's global terrorism network. One of the witnesses there, and one of the interesting things was, I always like to watch hearings, having testified at many of them. I think I see it from a different prism. Very often, one witness will disagree with another because both parties put up witnesses, so you can have a back and forth. At this hearing, there was no argument, no dissent with what this one witness had to say. His name is Dr. Emmanuel Ottolenghi. He is a member of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, and I want everyone to listen carefully. There's two short paragraphs. The first one is upsetting, and the second one keeps me awake almost every night. That's why I'm up at this hour. This is his words, not mine. By the way, he's going to talk about Hezbollah. We always associate Hezbollah with the Middle East. There is a humongous presence of Hezbollah throughout Latin America right now, and you should know that there are terror training camps in the tri-border region of Brazil. That's where the Mexican border comes in. But let me read what he said. In recent years, Hezbollah's Latin American networks have also increasingly cooperated with violent drug cartels and criminal syndicates, often with the assistance of local corrupt political elites. Cooperation includes the laundering of drug money, arranging multi-ton shipments of cocaine to the United States and Europe, and directly distributing and selling illicit substances to distant markets. Proceeds from these activities finance Hezbollah's arms procurement, its terror activities overseas, its hold on Lebanon's political system, and its efforts both in Lebanon and overseas to keep Shia communities loyal to its causes and complicit in its endeavors. That's upsetting. Now, here's the one that keeps me staring at the ceiling in my bedroom at night. This toxic crime terror nexus, that is Hezbollah and the smugglers of people and drugs. This toxic crime terror nexus is fueling both the rising threat of global jihadism and the collapse of law and order across Latin America, that is helping to drive drugs and people northward into the United States. It is sustaining Hezbollah's growing financial needs. It is helping Iran and Hezbollah consolidate a local constituency in multiple countries across Latin America, thus facilitating their efforts to build safe havens for terrorists and a continent-wide terror infrastructure that they could use to strike U.S. targets. and I don't know if you remember this, but around the time that Obama was running for re-election, the FBI and ICE agents working cooperatively, and again, I've arrested and investigated terrorists. My first fraud case caused me to trip over a terror plot in Israel. We prevented the bombing of an oil refinery. This was back in 1976. This is not new. But the issue that we have is that by not securing the border, by allowing people in, we had a situation when Obama was running for re-election where Hezbollah, operating in Mexico, came across the border. Their goal was to kill the Saudi ambassador, blow up the Saudi embassy in Washington, and perhaps the Israeli embassy. It was stopped. But understand that that border is a major issue, but it's not just that border. And you can't control the border at the border. And that's the one issue that everybody ignores.
Forget me not.
Frank Sinatra singing You Make Me Feel So Young. These days, if you feel young, that might mean you feel depressed. 40% of children and teens are depressed. 55% of them report emotional abuse. 10% of them report physical abuse. So far, we've heard a lot of causes as to what's behind this. I think one of the big... You know what the thing was with the lockdowns? It caused everything in society that was bending, it caused it to break. And I think childhood depression and mental illness among children is part of that. So I think all of this was already a problem, and this has significantly made it worse. So in terms of solutions, we've got stop telling 8-year-olds they're responsible for slavery. We've got religion. We've got keep kids in school. We've got have big tech fix the social media platforms. We've got stay away from dark chocolate and coffee. We've got have better nutritional standards in terms of the meals we give in schools. What else? This is a real problem, and I agree this is a national emergency. And I don't feel like, we're dealing with this as if it's a national emergency. I mean, I know the Roe versus Wade decision is important, but maybe we can just discuss that 19 hours a day instead of 22 hours a day and actually talk about some of the children that have already been born. 800-848-WABC. Maria is in Monmouth County. Hello, Maria.
Oh, hi. Good to speak to you. Well, everybody can feel a little more relaxed, but there's nothing you can do. All teenagers hate their parents. Now, that sounds crazy, but I went to a meeting in New York 40 years ago, before we had the pandemic, and there were quite well-to-do parents there from all different private schools in Manhattan. So I was there, although I wasn't that well-to-do, and this important man stood up there, a therapist, psychologist, and he said, all of you can know one thing. Your teenagers hate you. Okay? So that's it. This doesn't have to do with wars or anything else, okay? This has to do with that they are depressed at that age, and of course that makes them not like a lot of people who are close to them. So that's it.
All right.
Teenagers hate you.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, honestly. Look, obviously, my only experience being a teenager was in my own life. And while there's certainly a streak of rebelliousness that's present in your teens, I didn't hate my parents at all. I love my parents. And I'm sure they would have appreciated if I, was a little less rebellious in certain sectors. But honestly, I am the same. I have the same sense of distrust of authority and rebelliousness now that I did as a teenager. I never hated my parents. I've heard that so often, and maybe it's more present with girls than boys, but I've never hated my parents, and I don't think that's true, and I don't accept that, honestly. Natalie's in Howard Beach. Hello, Natalie. Natalie has found something else to do. Okay. Natalie wants to call back. She's welcome to. Let's see what the Anthonys have to say. Let me say hello to Anthony in Brooklyn. Hello, Anthony.
Hi, Frank. That's not true. I loved my mother growing up as a teenager, that we hated our parents. That's not true at all. I just want to dispel that myth. But what I have to say is, my mother got me a bicycle, and I got into bicycle racing, and that helped me a lot because the bicycle racing, it helps you feel like like a sense of worth, and you get into the sport, and you feel you're worth something, and you feel more valuable. You don't feel like a piece of trash hanging out in the corner doing nothing but drinking and smoking.
I love this solution, Anthony. Do you have children of your own?
No, and I'm not going to because unfortunately I have mental illness. So I don't want to just pass it down to them.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear about that, and I hope you're dealing with it as best you can. But your advice would be that if a parent sees that they have a child that's struggling with depression or anything really, that bicycle racing is a great avenue to help break them out of that funk.
It absolutely is. Trust me, I know from life experience.
All right. Well, thank you, Anthony. Let's see what the other Anthonys have to say. Anthony in New Jersey. Hello, Anthony.
Hello, Frank. How you doing this morning? Okay. Yeah, this is my belief now. Some people have touched on it already, but not in the same aspect that I'm thinking. So what it is definitely your childhood, your upbringing. Okay. And then you've got your environment, which is who you hang out with, where you hang out with, what you're doing. And again, sports, most definitely. If you're not active and, running around, playing ball, hanging out with your pals, but at a reasonable time, of course. You're home by 5 to have dinner, and then you're doing your homework and your home thing, with the family. And I think that everybody is just separated because of the electronic scene, okay? And that's basically it, man.
I like it. Seems to make sense to me. Thank you. Gina is in Brooklyn. Hello, Gina.
Oh, hi, Frank. Frank, I have a lot of thoughts on this topic. First, keep the kids talking, and make everything fun and enthusiastic. Don't fight and complain about all the hardships that the parents have right in front of them because it hurts the kids. And if the kids are slow to warm up, ask them a lot of open-ended questions, not yes and no questions. You could start with their likes and dislikes and people they know, and then try to get them with a lot of hands-on activities, writing about people they know if they don't want to talk about people they know, or for them a reward if they could put together like 5 little short stories about experiences they had. And you can get a lot out of the kids, drawing it, from stuff they wouldn't ordinarily talk about. Make it fun. Teach them not to compare themselves to others. And that's why I hate that social media, because I think that that's a springboard for people starting to compare their lives to others. And if the kids are isolated, it's a great time to learn a musical instrument.
Oh.
I played the piano as a kid, and the piano was my therapy my whole life. And I have a gig. I sing songs of the very life I lived,
I love this, Gina. That's great. That's great practical advice. I love this.
And the piano, I have a portable, but, the one that you couldn't move. When you're stuck at home, I played my piano. Get the sheet music of the songs the kids love, let them start with songs they know. And find stuff that they can do and have success. And, a big thing I really believe in is teaching them to stay positive and not to compare themselves to others.
That's very sound advice, Gina. Thank you. It's funny. I'm reading this list in this Axios article yesterday of how all of us can help this crisis. One, and some of them are not far off from what Gina was mentioning. One was look for outward signs that something's wrong. Rapid weight gain or weight loss, falling grades, mood swings, frequent headaches and fatigue. Don't avert your gaze. Number 2, don't just watch, ask. Young people want attention and questions, even if they act otherwise. That goes hand in hand with what Gina was saying. Open-ended questions, she was saying. 3, read between the lines. We look at the kids who are irritable or angry and we say they're bad or mad. That's according to Ken Ginsberg, a pediatrician and the founder of the Center for Parent and Teen Communication. That's how they show they're sad. Number 4, call in professionals. If the price is steep, start with cheap or free resources at the child's pediatrician office, school, or house of worship, All those places have adults trained to counsel. And number 5, insist on answers. Don't assume specialists are omniscient. Seek second opinions. If they prescribe medication, follow up with them on why and the side effects. Alcohol often causes problems when mixed with medication. Help teens understand this. And according to that fellow Ken Ginsburg, you don't need to have the perfect words. You just need to show up. I think that's important advice. But I feel like a lot of parents are showing up and they're still having a tough time. 800-848-WABC. Virginia is in the Bronx. Hello.
Hello, Frank.
Yes. Hi, Virginia.
Yes, hi. This is not a new subject. I mean, 6-7 years ago, I used to go to Jacoby Hospital on lectures how teens were the biggest group that commit suicide. But a lot of it had to do with social media and bullying. There were so many children who killed themselves because they were hurt from people being bullied over the social media. So social media definitely has something to do with it. As far as the nutrition, they were already trying to get better meals, and the kids were not eating the better meals. They didn't want the better meals. They were bringing snacks home from their school, eating it, and throwing away the meal. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but like the woman before said, I think playing an instrument might help, and keeping them busy, and definitely keeping them off of social media. I think the pandemic might have made things worse.
Oh, well, I mean, clearly the statistics bear that out. Absolutely.
Well, now you have guns and hate that is despicable.
Yeah, well said, Virginia.
Now
Absolutely.
you have adults that hate one another. Before, it was bullying where the kids hate the kids. But now you even have adults who hate adults and kids. It's tripled the hatred.
Well, thank you, Virginia. I'll be honest. I don't know that hatred among adults is as big of a problem as many in the media are making it out to be. I just read this book, and I'm hoping to have the author on soon. It's called I, Citizen by Tony Woodleaf. That's the dinner I went to last week, which was, a nice dinner last Thursday. And he talks about how once you get people talking with one another, they really have so much more in common. And I just read this op-ed in the New York Times of this young Democratic state lawmaker in Maine. Maine again. We're talking about Maine. And she just wrote this book with another Democratic activist in Maine. And it's all about how the Democratic Party has abandoned rural America. And essentially, the two of them talk about how bad that is, one, for the Democratic Party, and two, for rural America. And they have this whole playbook of how Democrats can win back rural America. And you know what it all comes down to? I read the whole op-ed. And not that it's a lengthy op-ed. I mean, it was a few paragraphs. But what it all comes down to, in their view, is try. The modus operandi among Democratic activists, Democratic leadership now, and I don't mean to make this political, but there is a point that I'm trying to get to here, is just to, if there were Trump voters, they're not going to vote for you. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your breath. What you need to do is work on getting your own people to turn out. People that are likely to vote Democrat because of their socioeconomic background or because of whatever else, their gender or their sexuality. Focus just on those people. Those rural folks, those Trump voters, ignore them. It's a waste of time. And these authors talk about the success that they've had as progressives, reaching out to rural voters, and how Democrats around the country, they don't even want to try. And I think that's so important. And to Virginia's point, and I appreciate the sentiment behind her call, but I don't think hate is progressive. When I see people get together at a bar or a cigar shop or in a park, they have so much more in common than they have apart. It doesn't matter if they're from different races, different ethnic groups, different religions, different politics, different age groups. Their blood is the same color. So I really don't think adults hate one another. I think the media especially cable news, has an interest in making all adults think that people that aren't like them do hate one another, but I don't think that's reality. My wife carries pepper spray with her at all times. Now, technically, pepper spray is illegal in New York, but I'll tell you, I'm glad that she carries the pepper spray with her, because if I'm not with her and she's out somewhere and she gets accosted by someone, I would like her to have something to defend herself and at least buy her a little bit of time to prevent her from being assaulted or, heaven forbid, whatever else. And that's why I was really interested in this op-ed piece in the New York Post over the weekend by Ricky Schlott. Ricky Schlott is a young woman, I believe she's 21 years old, and she's right on the money here. And she writes, in early December, I came face to face with a predator on the streets of New York, and the pepper spray hanging from my bedazzled pink keychain turned out to be my saving grace. Around 5 p.m. on a Wednesday, I was walking home from the gym on a busy street near Union Square when a man lewdly catcalled me. I ignored it, kept my head down, and picked up the pace. But no matter how fast I booked it, his voice kept getting closer. I mean, you talk about as a woman, especially as a 20 or 21-year-old, how frightening that must be. His sexual comments turned violent as he pursued me for 4 blocks. 4 blocks! I desperately searched for cops, but I didn't see a single officer. That's when I made the decision to run into a crowded pharmacy, hoping to lose him and find safety in numbers. But the man followed me inside. Can you imagine if this was your sister, your daughter, your wife? He blocked the only exit and spewed derogatory names at me while yelling, quote, "You know I could rape you." Now, imagine as a 21-year-old being chased for 4 blocks and somebody tells you that, not a cop in sight. To my shock, the 24 or so people in the pharmacy, patrons, employees, and even a uniformed security guard all averted their eyes. Now, by the way, I don't know anything about Ricky Schlott. I don't know who she is. She could be the most credible person in the world or the least. So I can't confirm this version of events. I'm just offering it, as they say in court, not for the truth of his content, but the fact that it was said. As he began to approach me, I remembered the mace in my pocket. I clicked open the canister, and he hesitated, giving me a split second to dash for the door. Riding a rush of adrenaline, I ran all the way home, locked my apartment door behind me, and broke down crying. If I hadn't had the threat of mace, I have no idea how that encounter would have ended. But I know for sure that my pepper spray got me out of a dangerous situation. Now, I never leave the house without it. As a young woman facing down a crime wave in New York, pepper spray is the only method of self-defense at my disposal. So why are we talking about this? But a ludicrous law stands in the way of New Yorkers getting access to this most basic form of self-defense. While anyone can order mace online via Amazon, a state law prohibits the product from being shipped to New York addresses. She's exactly right. We were talking about this over the weekend because my sister's in her 20s, not much older than this woman. And we were talking about how she and my future sister-in-law, Kat, should carry pepper spray with them. And we talked about how you can't order it and get it shipped to New York. We have to have it sent to my cousin in Pennsylvania and have my Pennsylvania cousin somehow give it to them. There are only a handful of in-person locations that sell pepper spray in the city, many of which have shuttered since the pandemic. Online message boards are flooded with desperate New Yorkers trading notes on where to find it. And yet, despite a mounting need for self-defense, this law stands. Overall, crime is up 60% since last year, and the city's been rocked by hate crimes, subway shovings, and heinous murders. Meanwhile, New Yorkers desperate to defend themselves are being forced to jump through hoops to buy mace. In April, a group handing out pepper spray to women and the elderly in Chinatown attracted a line spanning blocks along Mulberry Street. A total of 550 canisters were snapped up in just 30 minutes. You know, this is a good idea for Curtis, actually. And I would maybe do this with him. To hand out pepper spray to young women taking the subway who don't feel safe. And I bet you, John Catsimatidis is such a public safety advocate. I bet you he would buy the pepper spray for them. Because, he's a father of a daughter as well. And it's not to say that men can't benefit from this as well. But, you think of young women being accosted by creeps like the person that Ricky Schlott is writing about here. When the barista at my local coffee shop asked me where I got my Mace keychain, she was disappointed to hear it required a Jersey zip code. I've even become a de facto distributor myself. Multiple New York City friends concerned for their safety have asked me if they can ship pepper spray to my family's address in Jersey so I can deliver it to them. The bottom line, the ban on shipping pepper spray is ridiculous. Vulnerable New Yorkers shouldn't be waiting on lines, contacting out-of-state friends, or scouring Reddit threads to find it. And with more than 1.5 million single women and 1 million elderly residents in the city, there's no place where easy access to basic non-lethal self-defense is more necessary. I completely agree with this. And I'll tell you, this is something, if Governor Hochul's got an election coming up in either June or August, and then another one in September, she should make this an issue tomorrow. And Eric Adams, Mr. Public Safety, he should make this an issue yesterday. This is crazy. Why should it be illegal to send pepper spray to a New York address? Here's a product that you can order on Amazon. It's non-lethal. Heaven forbid you make a mistake, you could still order it. And, I mean, to me, this has got to be the easiest layup in the world for the mayor and the governor. And in the meantime, I am going to suggest to my friend Curtis Lewa that he does a pepper spray giveaway on the subway. I think a lot of people would be grateful for this. What I don't understand, and if you want to comment on this, you can at 800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-WABC. How can anyone be against this? What's the possible benefit of preserving this prohibition on pepper spray being sent to New York State? 800-848-WABC. That's 1-800-848-9222. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 open lines if you want to comment. Those of you that are on hold, I'll get to you. We'll let you comment on whatever you like. To me, I was so glad that Ricky Schlott wrote that piece in the Post, and I was so glad that I read it, and I hope that by me talking about it, it will raise awareness among policymakers to do away with this absurd law. What do you think? 800-848-9222. Mark on Staten Island has been holding for a while. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Frank. Thanks for taking the call. I'll be as quick as I can, but I need a little time. It's my second call in 20 years. The last call I made was when interest rates were as low as they've been in the history of the country. Nobody could give you a good reason why. And meanwhile, the prime rate was 2%. We're paying 15 on credit cards. These days, I left Wall Street. I'm a track mutual clerk worker for about 8-9 years. And I'm calling because I love Curtis Lewa. I followed his career. I admire him tremendously. I never heard him sound so stupid as he did yesterday, talking about Kentucky Derby. He doesn't know what he's talking about. First of all, wise ass talking about call the horse strike at Ranch Lucky Strike. The horse made $1.8 million in 2.2 minutes. He thinks it's 51 seconds. I mean, I love the guy, but he sounds like a sore loser. I'm a $2 bettor, but I play on horses 50 years, go to Saratoga every year for 50 years. I go to the seminars at the Ragazin Sheets years ago, and had an occasion yesterday. The Kentucky Derby, a guy from Staten Island comes up, says, I got to buy a ticket for my 92-year-old father. One bet the 21 horse. I said, he's not in here yet, the 20 scratch. But then later on, the horse gets in, and I go looking around the track to find the guy. I felt so bad. Couldn't find him. About an hour and a half later, he comes back, and I say, geez, where the hell were you? I couldn't find you. Felt so bad. He goes, it's all right. I put the bet. He said, but you gave me this ticket. Either I gave you the wrong number or you gave me the wrong ticket. Paid $3,900. Great country, right? But I was really disappointed in Curtis. I mean, for a guy who's I admire him so much. He sounds so dumb. Doesn't know what he's talking about, the horses. Stay in your own lane, stay with what you do best. Jack Nicklaus used to say, when you practice your golf shots, you don't practice your bad shots, you practice your good shots.
Well, look, Mark, thank you for the call. I'm glad you called. But not knowing about something would never stop Curtis from talking about it. That's the first thing you need to understand. In fact, there is actually an inverse relationship. The less Curtis knows about a subject, the more likely he is to talk about it. That's actually true. Experts have studied that and written about it. I think one gentleman's actually working on a scholarly thesis to that effect. 800-848-9222. Should they do away with this law which prohibits pepper spray, which you could purchase legally on Amazon, but you can't get it mailed to your house if you live in New York? In my view, they should. 800-848-9222. Howard in Elmhurst. Hello.
Thank you, Frank. How are you? Anyway, when I took a course in the Learning Annex many years ago, Mad Get Even. I forget who the teacher was. I'm sorry. But he said another thing women can use is flares. Criminals know knives, they know guns, but they don't know flares. So light up a flare and throw it at somebody if they're about to. Well,
can you get a flare, a gun, legally mailed to your address in New York?
I honestly don't know.
Because if you can't, then I feel like we have the same problem.
You might, but I'm not sure really. I thought you might know.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. But if you can get a flare gun legally sent to you, that strikes me as a good thing. I mean, the thing that I like about pepper spray, and thanks for the call, Howard, and the thing that I like about my wife carrying it, and my sister carrying it, and my sister-in-law, and whomever else, is that it's relatively inexpensive. It's relatively light. You can easily just put it on a keychain. And if you're wrong, I mean, it's not comfortable for somebody to get doused with pepper spray, but if you're wrong, you're not killing anyone. I don't know if something like a flare gun has those same advantages. I'm speaking totally from ignorance. I like the pepper spray solution, and I just wish they would let you have it in New York and have it get mailed to you legally. 800-848-WABC. That's 800-848-9222. Let me say hello to Peter in New Jersey. Hello, Peter.
Yeah, hi, Frank. Spectacular program a little while ago, and your thoughts were very important on this whole subject of happiness in children.
Thank you.
My quick thoughts were all of us mortal humans, every one of us is children. We're the same, except in size and our number, age. Same subject, though. And what I've learned, I'm 65 years old, a lot of studying. What I've learned is there are no answers, and nothing works. So it's important to know that subject assumption to start with. You're never going to find any lasting joy in government, the world's promises, entertainment, any of that. The best that we can go for as mortal humans is what they call a sublime and a quiet hope and a joy. And it's quiet. It's not happy. Happy is only a mood. But a quiet, sublime joy and hope, those are graces. Those are religious, spiritual graces. And, I'm a Roman Catholic. That's the one I look for because they got the confession clemency sacrament, which I like. And to help with the whole process, our assignment is to serve God in this life, be happy with Him in the next. So that's my point. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what I would say, keeping it short, the parables of Jesus, that's how He primarily taught in public, His parables. And He talks exactly about this entire macro-level subject, the parables. There's about 20 of them. And at the very end of his life, when he was crucified on the tree, he had one guy on the left of him and one guy on the right of him also crucified. The one on the left symbolized the zero. It's either a 0 or a 1. The one on the right, Jesus had a conversation, guaranteed him clemency. The one on the left, he ignored him completely because the guy on the left was insolent, not humble, not contrite or any other subject. So with every human, there's a proportion of humans, only a proportion, and that understand. And God is not able to force or work with all the ones who don't want to do their part, if you will. So this is the subject, and it's coming to a boiling crescendo in our history, in our time. And the word is not the end of the age or the end of the world, any of that. It's the completion of the age, which is a much more proper understanding where we have been and where we are now. We're heading toward the completion. And so a Roman Catholic should go to sacrament of confession.
All right, but thank you, Peter. Again, I appreciate the sentiments, and I pray a great deal, and hope that my son will, be raised in a manner that's consistent with Christian values. But I find that whether we're talking about crime in New York and this ludicrous law which prohibits pepper spray from being mailed to New York, or whether we're talking about depression in kids, the mental health crisis involving children, I think spirituality, religion, organized religion, and the fellowship that comes with organized religion, it can be a component of solving a lot of these problems. But I think a lot of these are very secular problems. And I know many of you clearly disagree with me. But I think, look, you can be an atheist or an agnostic and be depressed and do things like take drugs and drink alcohol, in which case you're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting everyone you interact with. Or you can be an atheist that is not depressed and doesn't drink and doesn't do drugs. So I know a lot of people are very well-intentioned with making Jesus the solution to all this stuff, but I feel like there's got to be some solutions even if you're not ready to be, a Christian, if that makes sense. This radio station in South Carolina, WOEZ, in Burton, South Carolina, on the Atlantic coast near Hilton Head Island. My family used to vacation in Hilton Head Island when I was a child. In fact, I think my dad and stepmother may still go down there. It's between Charleston and Savannah. This station's owned by Saga Communications. It's a medium-sized broadcaster. It's not a blowtorch station like this one. But if you tune in to that station right around now, do you know what you'll hear? You will hear something that sounds very similar to this. That's right. It's not a joke. At least we don't think it's a joke. This AC station, adult contemporary station, 93.7 down there, has decided that they are going to play nature sounds overnight, including rain and thunder. The head of Saga Communications, Ed Christian, says he wants to help people get sleep. Boy, I hope John Catsimatidis is not listening to this. The company is hoping a mattress store or similar client signs up. They would get 2 spots per hour, so it doesn't interfere much with the nature sounds. Now, it is interesting. It's an interesting idea. I'm curious how this works out. Ed Christian says radio needs to try different thinking. I agree with that radio does need to try different thinking. And as you know, I am on a one-man mission to save terrestrial talk radio. To save terrestrial radio in general, because you know what it kills me is radio is a wonderful thing. To me, I don't think there's anything more exciting than scanning the radio dial up and down and discovering something new. It's just wonderful. And we've done whole segments on that before about the most interesting thing you've ever discovered by accident. But now, with more and more people listening on through their smartphone or through their computer, if you want to hear WABC, you go out and look for WABC. But it's very difficult to just discover. And that's where the magic of terrestrial radio comes in. So, it got me thinking, what Ed Christian says in this article in Inside Radio got me thinking. He says, and I agree with him, that radio needs to try different thinking. And so, we had a consultant at a station I worked for one time that said you should have 1 hour in the morning of just traffic. Just traffic. I thought it was the most ridiculous idea I've ever heard. But at least it was different. Another consultant said of Curtis and one of his partners, this is not at this station, it was not Ron Kuby, or either of the two partners he's partnered with now, said of Curtis and one of his partners, they weren't fighting enough. So do you know what this consultant actually suggested? He said, Curtis, you're such a larger-than-life presence. What you should do is you and this co-host of yours should be in separate rooms so that you fight more. Now, think about what a stupid idea that is.
What a Mama Luke.
I don't want... you can guess where Curtis told that consultant to go. But it got me thinking, though, what are some different things that radio can try? 800-848-WABC. That's 800-848-9222. Something different, something that's out of the box that radio can try. One of the guys that's been a leader on this, and I'm not being facetious here, has been Tom from the Bronx. Tom from the Bronx has repeatedly said, and I think it's because he doesn't have cable or anything, that there's a lot of great programming that's only carried on television, not on radio, every July 4th. And I suggested this to our station last year. Now that we have a new program director, I'm going to make the same suggestion this year. Every July 4th, I make the same suggestion. Why is the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest not carried on the radio? As I was driving back from Long Island on Saturday night, we were going up and down the dial, all the sports stations. We couldn't find the Kentucky Derby to listen to. I think radio misses the boat on a lot of that stuff. So whether it's the all traffic hour or whether it's what Ed Christian is saying of all nature sound radio, or whether it's my idea of carrying the hot dogs eating contest on July 4th, what do you think radio could be doing differently? What would you do? Out of the box thinking. And I don't want to hear, we need hosts that are more conservative or more liberal or whatever. I want to hear something really different and creative. Say what you want about the all traffic hour. Say what you want about the all nature sound overnight. It's different. That's what I'm wanting to hear your ideas about. What's different? 800-848-9222. It's similar to a suggestion that Michael Harrison of Talkers had with Jim Bohannon. Jim Bohannon's been a syndicated late night, not on against me, but a syndicated late night radio talk show host for many years. He took over sort of for Larry King. And Jim Bohannon was on Michael Harrison's podcast, and I've been a guest on this podcast as well. And Michael Harrison's a great guy, and he's certainly been very good for me. In fact, good to me. He's invited me to be on one of the panels at the Talkers Convention this year, next month, which I'm looking forward to being out on Long Island. But this is a conversation that I was listening to a couple of weeks ago when I was listening to Michael Harrison and Jim Bohannon. Listen to what Michael Harrison asks Jim Bohannon.
What do you think radio should be doing to take itself forward?
I've never been a deep thinker about programming. I've always let bosses handle that. But other than dividing further into more minutia of differences, I'm not really sure what else that I would do. I'm not really sure that radio does anything that we could do head-to-head with television, and we couldn't afford the economics of, for example, doing sitcoms. without, of course, a visual aspect. Even if we could put forward something that was that compelling, I mean, how would we pay for all of the actors? I mean, the actors these days would all be members of SAG-AFTRA. Full disclosure, I am a member of the industry union, and I certainly support the wonderful things that they've done for pay and benefits. But those things that have been done to create wonderful living wages, and certainly far beyond that for the stars of television, radio wouldn't be able to generate enough audience, I don't think, to be able to generate the revenue from advertising that would lead to a return to, let's say, large-scale acting on radio. Things like the old CBS Mystery Theater, for example. I'm not sure how that made a go of it economically, and I'm not sure how we would do that today. I'm probably pretty much stuck in the past and a creature of that past. The short answer is, I'm not sure what we would do differently.
So I thought that was a really good question by Michael Harrison and a very poor answer by Jim Bohannon. And at least Jim Bohannon gave some explanation as to why he couldn't come up with anything, but it really wasn't out of the box. So I'm going to ask you the same question that Michael Harrison asked Jim Bohannon. What do you think radio should be doing to move itself forward? That is the question.
A question. Since before your sun burned hot in space and before your race was born, I have awaited a question.
Let me begin with Chris in Mount Vernon. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Frank. Yeah, he kind of just said what I was thinking, kind of. Like, I was thinking like a sitcom on the radio would be cool, but, I mean, if it's not going to be able to, if they're not going to be able to afford to put it on or whatever, it's not. But I wouldn't mind listening to a sitcom like back in the 50s or whatever. You can hear, actors and, a real sitcom going on. And then you could record it, and like people don't catch it, they could listen to the podcast and stuff like that. I thought that would be cool. But
well, hey, look, they say everything old is new again. So just because Jim Bohannon said it wouldn't work doesn't mean that it wouldn't. Maybe that is the direction that we need to be going to move radio forward. Thank you, Chris. 800-848-WABC. What do you think? 1-800-848-9222. Rick is in New Jersey. Hello, Rick.
Yes, good morning, Frank.
Morning.
First, the important thing about your cat. My cat has a very similar... By the way, cats have urinary problems all over the board. Most of it is caused by stress. Right now, I have a cat on Prozac, and it's doing very well, changing a lot of things. There's also a spray called Feel Away Comfort Zone, which is a pheromone, and it calms them right down. That might work a lot.
Okay, well, yeah, we've been using that, and that is helpful in getting him into the carrier, but we'll see.
Yeah, another thing about the carrier, use a dog carrier, a huge dog carrier. It's very hard to get them in those small things. You can just put them into a dog carrier and carry it in.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Rick.
Okay. All right, now about the self-defense things. Clearly you can see that the states are not friendly towards self-defense, so you got to be careful what you use. I got my nephew is a cop, and he cautioned me. He said, "You got to throw this away." I had filled up a super soaker with Drano against home invasion, and he said, "I'd go to jail for 20 years using it." You can't use something dangerous, even to protect yourself.
Well, I know, but pepper spray, you can use pepper spray in self-defense.
No, we were talking about other things like hairspray.
Okay, no, well, I'm talking specifically about pepper spray. Other folks brought up other things. Thank you, though, Rick. Appreciate it. 800-848-WABC. Dan is in Toms River. Hello, Dan.
Good morning. Good morning, Frank. So you're talking about different things you could do on the radio to make it a little bit more interesting.
Well, no. I think radio is plenty interesting. I'm asking the same question that that Michael Harrison asked Jim Bohannon. What do you think radio should be doing to move itself forward? That's the question I'm asking.
Well, yeah, understand. No doubt. There was a skit years ago that Monty Python did that I thought was pretty funny. These people would pay money to go into an office to get into an argument with someone. And these were circular arguments. It would just go round and round and round and would totally fluster the person, the payer. and it was very entertaining. And if you ever get a chance to see the skit, and I thought it was kind of funny, and it would make a lot of sense to do something like that on the radio to keep people laughing, entertained, and you could be pretty creative with it.
So I like Monty Python, but I have not seen that one. So basically, it would be what you'd record conversations of folks going into an office and having arguments with one another.
Yeah, or you could do it on the radio. They could call you up and argue with you. I want to argue about blank, and you're a pretty smart guy. You would be able to just make the argument continue and go on and on and on. And then when your time is up, ding, you're done. Or you could pay for more argument time.
Okay, that's interesting, Dan. I feel like people do that with me already. I feel like I don't even say anything bad, and people are always calling and arguing with me anyway. 800-848-WABC. What would you do if you were in charge of radio in order to help an out-of-the-box idea for radio to move itself forward?